Hello boys and girls, and welcome to another video on my channel. In this episode I'll tell you a little bit about Honda CB500X riding limits, so you are aware of them, or as an owner, or if you are looking to own this beautiful machine in near future.
Cool place, guys. There's a million tracks like this in Croatia for all skill levels.
Before we jump into the limits of the CB500X, I just want to be 100% clear and objective. Maybe you'll agree with me, maybe not. I rode this motorcycle on every road you can imagine, and what you'll see and hear later in the video is solely based on my experience with this bike, meaning yours could be different. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. So far, in previous videos on my channel, you could see how good and versatile Honda CB500X really is. It can tackle all sorts of paved roads without a single issue. And I do mean all of them, without an exception. If it's paved, CB500X won't have absolutely any issues with it. You could say every bike can do that, and for most you would be right. But what CB500X makes different from other naked, sport or dirt bikes is an overall package, convenience and simplicity in tackling various types of paved roads. With this I mean, in normal circumstances, 500 km fuel range, upright seating position, solid luggage space, sufficiently low center of gravity for an easy flipping in the corners, and well-balanced engine with a linear pull throughout all gears. From small mountain roads with badly paved surface to buttery smooth motorways, this bike just eats them all without a single problem or complaint. Even, I'm sure picky people would find few downsides, but let's not forget we are talking here about the bike in price range of a better sofa. My point is, with CB500X, there's a lot of bang for the buck. There's simply no question about that. Riding long distances, riding with pillion, riding with bunch of luggage, riding many hours in saddle, all possible scenarios you can imagine. And Honda CB500X just gets all done pretty well, I'd say. But as long as surface is paved. But when surface changes and it's not paved anymore, well, that's the point where CB500X starts to show its different nature. Even CB500X is advertised as an off-road capable bike. With 19-inch front wheel and sufficient ground clearance, off-road riding is where CB500X shows majority of its limits. On light gravel roads, bike still goes just fine, but if I'm riding with slightly higher speed, or I'm carrying additional luggage, or even a pillion with me for that matter, I can feel bike is working a lot harder to accommodate my inputs and make me feel happy and in control. Even in this light gravel scenario, bike is satisfying. Bigger front wheel and decent ground clearance are covering this aspect of CB500X off-road nature. So what are the limits of the CB500X then? Well, good news is, considering bike's price, it's not that easy to find bike's limits, I can tell you that. In 90% cases, people riding this bike normally for commuting or for occasional pleasure purposes, on or off the road, will never reach 500X limits. I wouldn't do in normal scenario, if I deliberately didn't want to check what bike cannot do. Here's what I would say where CB500X hits its own limits. First, CB500X limit is everything on speeds above 150 km per hour. Below this speed, bike is agile and responsive on throttle, but above this speed, bikes become noisy, wind blasts are high, fuel consumption goes up, vibration on handlebars are much higher, and general feeling while riding is that bike is not planted and stable as on lower speeds. Second thing where bike hits its own limits is on a little more challenging off-road terrains. If a terrain surface is rocky, or there's a lot of uneven inclines or declines on rough, rocky or muddy terrain, this is where bike starts to be difficult to manage. I would say this is because of bike's weight primarily. 200 plus kilograms is not a lot, but on harder terrain where it's expected bike will bounce a lot, that weight simply becomes a limitation, and it's difficult to keep the bike up. Third, for off-road riding, bike is a little too wide. While riding off-road on narrow forest trails, I found myself fighting with the bike to grip the tank area better with my legs, and to position the bike correctly because of wider wheels, to be able to pass in between trees and vegetation. Because of wider seating area, tank and wider wheels footprint, which is a plus for long-distance comfort and range to be clear, this is equally a limitation for off-road riding. It would be better, in my opinion, if the bike is just a little more narrow altogether, especially the seat and where tank is. By that I mean something between CRF 300 and CB500X itself. Fourth, another thing where CB500X hits its own limits is, for off-road riding it simply has a lot of protective plastics. This makes bike very vulnerable on off-road terrains. I don't think there's anyone out there who hasn't fell off the bike at least once while riding off-road, and having a lot of plastics that can break just makes things more difficult and potentially expensive. Fifth, CB500X doesn't like sudden changes of terrain. Whenever I'm riding a little more aggressive or with higher speeds and the surface in front of me suddenly changes, bike tends to wobble for a few moments until suspension sucks up all the bumps. Even suspension can be tuned, it's still showing its limits on harder off-road terrains. And guys, as a bonus limiting point regarding CB500X, I would say ABS is not switchable on or off, which limits the bike's capability in a little more aggressive off-road riding. As you can see guys, CB500X is a little limited for off-road riding, but very capable on-road. So based on all of this, ideal CB500X for me would be a little more narrow in seating area and around petrol tank, with just a touch narrower wheels, with less cosmetic plastics that adds a little to no value, with upside down forks or a little better suspension, switchable ABS on rear wheel and at least with 20 kilos less in total weight. Engine wise, as far as I'm concerned, it can stay the same, with the same torque because Honda's engine is a gem. It's tuned perfectly, and if bike would weight less, that would make it even more agile and fun to ride. Okay, that's all from me this week guys. I hope this video was helpful to the future and existing CB500X owners. I appreciate your time. Let me know in comments below, do you agree or disagree with me? I'd like to hear your opinion or impressions regarding CB500X limits. Also, if this video was valuable to you, please hit me a thumbs up and support me by subscribing to my channel. Thank you, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care, ladies and gents.